5 college degrees in physics and science and all these things, but he was also deeply spiritual, and those two never seem to work together, right? Spiritual and
Yeah,
science.
generally not.
Yeah,
Generally, they kind of.
I think we're getting closer to that nexus, but and God willing, we are. But certainly, I think he was influenced by theosophy, if you know what
Hmm.
that is.
Hmm.
A lot of people with
Madame
that.
Blavatsky.
Yeah, but in his journal there are little clues that indicate that he was kind of a theosophist
Sure.
because he's mixing all these things around, and he talks about Brahmin wisdom, and so you know, he's just this wayward traveler looking for a new, a new life,
Well,
and,
he
and
found one. I
well,
mean,
well, yeah, in so many more ways than one, right?
you know, looking at the guy, I mean, just photos of him from period photos, of course, he looks just like an unassuming, small, almost country-looking doctor in a lot of ways. You'd never suspect him to fall in love with a dead girl, or he was already in love with her. But then, of course, we'll get into that. But he just doesn't give this psychopath or crazy aura about him. I mean, of course, like you said, he lived in a very, very hard time in Germany, and if you didn't, have some type of mental issues after living through that, you'd not be a human.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Well,
And
I mean, but also, I think that he was looking for something else. He was dealing with the frustrations that we deal with every day in modern times. He was. I really see him, and this might be going way too out there, but as what you'd call an art brute or an outsider artist. Just this restless soul. So, and I think where we're going is he's going to create this life for himself of his own design, this surrealistic life.
sure, no, it's a story, all right. And I was watching your video course over at Kickstarter, very well put together, by the way. And I recommend everybody go over there to check it out. If you're on America's Most Haunted page, there is a link directly to the Kickstarter. Go check it out because you're going to be making this fascinating film, but you're not going to be using flat out actors. You're going to take that leap and do a puppetry, which I think is really, really kind of a really cool concept because you don't see that a lot anymore.
No, that was really, it was like, there's a couple reasons for that. And the overt one is it's cooler and more interesting than cheesy actors, right?
Sure.
Like
Yeah.
and you see it so often, and especially with his case, you see these really corny reenactments. And I don't think actors, at least in the budget, let's be honest, that I can afford
Yeah.
as kind of a no-name director, um, I'm not going to be able to afford top name celebrities who can really bring his character to life. Puppetry can kind of, artistically facilitate that design, but also it's what the story, as we'll start divulging, is about. He was trying to reanimate this corpse. He wasn't interested in her as a dead body. He
Mm-hmm.
wasn't attracted to her as a dead body. He was attracted to her as a living being.
Mm-hmm.
And so his obsession with her was her beauty, and his ambitions were to reanimate her corpse. And so that's puppetry to me. He's playing
Sure.
puppet master.
Sure. So, okay. I get that. Now that really makes sense. Now you're using the puppetry as kind of a statement as well, if that's what he ultimately want to do with her.
Well, also there's another layer to that where he kind of manipulated not just her family, because he got kind of custody of her afterlife in a
Yeah.
sense from them by manipulating them, but also the town.
Sure.
And as we go through the story, you'll see the town really were big fans of his, and they still are. I mean, I got an email today suggesting that I'm trivializing his story by making it a Tim Burton type puppet movie and not something like Russell Crowe's A Beautiful Mind. And I love that. Like they still really honor and revere this guy, but he kind of really manipulated everybody and
Yeah.
played puppet master to so many things, including his own life. And
Well, would he fall kind of into that pathological liar kind of area with his being able to manipulate and tell tales and be able to bend people to his will?
I think it all goes back to the old George Costanza. It's not a lie if you believe it.
Oh,
You know,
touche, touche, my friend, touche.
and I think he truly believed it. There's no evidence in my mind that could suggest he did not believe that he had indeed resurrected her corpse. And who knows? Like I'm a 40 and a Charles Fort guy. Who knows? Who's to say? Maybe he did.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
would love to hear the actual story of their relationship. What is the backstory? How did they
Well,
meet?
so
What was the relationship, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera?
and again we're dealing with the kind of falsities of history and the falling through of the cracks. So he definitely had a relationship with Elena, um, and he describes it in his journal. His biographers describe it, and the court cases describe it in very different ways. Uh, she was she was amiable to him. She'd been married before meeting him, but she'd miscarried a child and the husband couldn't deal with it. So he took off
Hmm. Wow.
because all Spanish men, Spanish men at the time were total tough guys until you miscarry a baby and then they're
And
out.
that's it. You're out of my life.
That's it.
That's a deal breaker.
Lucy, you got some splaining to do.
Why did you miscarry my baby?
Yeah. How dare you?
So he took off, and so in this guy's mind, he was heartbroken when he realized she was married, but then relieved when he was like, oh, but he's gone. And so she kind of is up for grab. Now, keep in mind for listeners who don't know the story, he's about 30 years older than her, or more than 30 years older than her. So he's an old man in the 1930 standard.
Sure.
But he fashions himself and plays himself off as this count, this aristocrat.
Yeah.
And so the family at first are not only taken with him because he's this wealthy aristocrat, but he's also a doctor and their daughter's dying
Hmm.
of tuberculosis. So they naturally kind of think, well, here's this guy who is willing to save our daughter's life, our sister's life. And the antagonist in the story is Elena's sister. She's the only one who really sees him for what he is.
Sure.
And is constantly like, in Ed Wood, when she kind of has that moment,
That
you're all
epiphany.
insane.
Yeah. You're all crazy.
You're all
Yeah.
crazy. She's the only one, and she's eventually the one to undo the whole thing. But it took her very long. But everyone kind of goes along with it, and he's doing all these. He was a mad scientist. I mean, if there ever was a true to life mad scientist, he's it. And he's shoving tubes down her throat that are trying to. It's all radiation. Maybe he's got some obsession with radiation, but he's trying to kind of irradiate tuberculosis, which would just give her cancer. But
Yeah. Yeah.
so
Well,
no
yeah.
matter what-
Just give her debilitating cancer. That's all. It's curing
But-
one affliction to give you another. All right. Good times.
but there's
It
no
was the
evidence.
30s.
Well, it was.
Yeah.
It was the 30s.
we
Always
all
up
did-
for grabs.
We all did crazy things in our 30s
Sure, we sure did.
or the 30s. So, but there's no evidence to suggest that she wasn't amiable to him. And probably, as we look at history, and I talk to historians, probably flirty, and not to stereotype, but probably just like what you would expect a young girl who has everything to gain from an aristocratic.
Oh, sure. She probably grew up poor.
Yes,
Yeah,
completely. They were cigar rollers.
Yeah, I mean, so she grew up poor, and here's this aristocrat coming in, offering these grandiose things. I mean, come on, it's power and wealth are often very, very attractive things.
Oh, sure. And even if they're, unfounded. I mean, because he was not the count he claimed to be. There's nothing that says he
He's
was
about
this.
as much a count as the count in Sesame Street. 1, 2. Yeah,
But he does put on a good display. But the family really go back and forth, and they think he's a bit abusive to them. He's never abusive to her. He is doting beyond all control to Elena, and but the family are they're just getting sick of him because he's really cruel to them, and treats them like spoiled children.
Sure.
So when she finally does die, he pretty much, and it's in his journal, in his own words, he pretty much blames them for not listening to him and his wisdom. And he's a bit of a megalomaniac in that way. And you can see how insanity is kind of growing in this whole scenario.
Well, the whole scenario is insanity. I mean,
Oh yeah, totally.
I
You know,
mean, it's lunacy.
Sure.
But now, was there ever any evidence that he had any physical contact with her while she was alive? Did she ever, was she ever intimate with him?
No, and he in his journal, there's nothing to suggest. And now any self-respecting male would write in that journal, hey, and there was this one time when we made out.
Yeah, one time we made whoopee.
Yeah, exactly.
It was Key West, and I got to second base.
Yeah, swinging for the fences.
But he doesn't allude to that. But he's also a very devout Catholic, and I was raised Catholic as well, and I know how that's a barrier between so many things.
Well,
but
this is true.
Yeah, so again, there's all this conflict there. But after she dies, he is given kind of, I guess, financially, as it's financially favorable to the family, he kind of takes the burden on to bury her and to take care of the funeral and all this stuff. So he kind of inserts himself. That's when they really join hands, basically, because he couldn't have her in life, but in death, because he's got some kind of small living wage from the hospital, and there's money coming from Germany that is kind of, nobody really knows what it was.
Yeah.
He's able to afford the funeral and to pay for everything. So
yeah,
the family just kind of go along with it.
Meanwhile, he puts 2 jugs of formaldehyde in that coffin to keep her fresh.
Yeah.
I'll ziplock her for later.
Yeah, right. Let's just keep it right. Well, no, but that became the issue. So now he goes and rents her bedroom from her parents, and again, it's this poverty, wealth dynamic. So it's they don't want to do it, and the sister, the Nana, is like, "You're fucking." I'm sorry. Can I say that?
No, sorry. No.
Beep it out loud. So you're insane. Like, don't do this. This guy it's out of his mind.
Sure.
But they're like, but we need the money. So what are we going to do?
All right, Ronnie. Okay, here's the deal. You're the sympathetic ear in this whole thing. Okay, me, I think that guy is bat spit crazy. Okay, this guy is crazier than crazy. He's crazier than my grandpa used to call crazier than a pet coon. Okay, I don't know what that ever meant, but there it is. If he wanted to rent her room, at that point, wouldn't the family be going, what the hell are you doing over there? I mean, you're a little obsessive. Can't you move on like the rest of us are? I mean,
but if, I mean, I have, I'm an independent filmmaker, so I'm frequently broke. And, I know what desperation feels like. And also I think the challenge of depression and the challenge of loss. But to your point, he'd been really cruel to them and yelled at them and blamed them for the daughter's death. So it's kind of absurd on so many levels that they'd say, go ahead, rent our dead daughter's room who you were obsessed with.
Yeah, go ahead. We don't mind. And we kept a few of her articles up there, if you know what I'm saying there, big boy.
Well, but while he's up there, as he's kind of going through her loss, he does begin to, hear voices as will happen if you're insane.
Well, yeah, that happens to be a side effect, I guess, of insanity. Is the frequent voices.
Or if you're a mad scientist.
Well, that is true too.
Well, sure, and who knows what's going on? But she had originally been buried in the ground, and so
many are.
Well, that's where they usually put them. But this is Key West, so it's below sea level.
Yeah, and they tried burying them on a beach once. That didn't work out at all for them.
No, they just wash up.
Yeah, they do. It's funny how that works. I guess no one ever thought about that.
So it's during in his journal, a night of a heavy storm, that he realizes oh, well, this is bad because the rain is